Long before the skyscrapers of Lagos, before the colonial capitals of empire, there stood a city so magnificent that the first Europeans who laid eyes on it could scarcely believe it was real. This city was Benin, capital of the Kingdom of Benin, a metropolis of wide streets, towering walls, bustling markets, and a palace complex that rivaled anything in Europe. In an age when many Europeans still thought of Africa as a land of villages, Benin shattered every illusion. It was proof that African civilization was not only thriving, but advanced, organized, and dazzling. Yet, tragically, it is also a city that was nearly erased from history, not by time, but by the fire of empire. Benin City's origins stretch back to the 11th century, when small settlements grew into a centralized kingdom. By the 15th century, under the leadership of powerful Obas, the city had become the heart of a formidable state. Visitors described broad avenues wide enough for 9 men to walk abreast, flanked by orderly rows of houses. The palace of the Oba stood at the city's center, a vast complex of courtyards, shrines, and halls adorned with intricate bronze plaques and ivory carvings. These works of art were not only beautiful, but served as a living history, recording royal triumphs, rituals, and dynasties. What most astounded outsiders were the city's defenses. Benin was surrounded by earthworks so vast that modern scholars have called them one of the greatest engineering feats in pre-industrial history. Moats, ramparts, and walls stretched for thousands of kilometers, encircling not just the city, but surrounding villages and farmland. Together, these earthworks were 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China, an extraordinary testament to the labor, organization, and vision of the kingdom. For its time, Benin was one of the most secure cities on earth. When Portuguese traders arrived in the late 15th century, they could hardly believe their eyes. Accounts described a city of order and grandeur, with streets that put some European towns to shame. One chronicler noted that Benin was so well governed that thefts are unknown. Another remarked on the discipline of its soldiers and the abundance of its markets. To them, Benin was not a backwater, but a wonder, an equal partner in trade, diplomacy, and power. The city's prosperity came from trade in ivory, pepper, and later, tragically, enslaved people. But unlike many kingdoms that fell entirely into dependency on the transatlantic slave trade, Benin maintained a careful balance, fiercely controlling access to its markets. The Oba's authority extended into every corner of the city, ensuring stability and continuity. Religion and ritual infused daily life, with shrines to ancestors and gods dotting the streets, binding the people in a shared spiritual order. For centuries, Benin City thrived, a jewel of Africa that rivaled the metropolises of the world. But in the 19th century, as Europe's appetite for conquest grew insatiable, its brilliance drew a darker kind of attention. To imperial eyes, Benin was not a partner, but a prize. Its refusal to submit to foreign control made it a target. In 1897, Britain launched its infamous punitive expedition. Soldiers stormed the city, armed with rifles and Maxim guns. Against such power, Benin's defenders could not stand. The great city, whose walls had withstood centuries of threats, was consumed in weeks. What followed was cultural devastation. The palace was set ablaze, its bronzes and ivories looted. The city's infrastructure, its carefully planned streets, its sacred shrines, its great earthworks, was reduced to ruins. European soldiers recorded their own astonishment, admitting that they were destroying something grander than many cities back home. Yet, they carried out the orders nonetheless, leaving behind only ashes and silence. The destruction of Benin City was not only the fall of a capital, but the erasure of a narrative. For decades, colonial powers insisted that Africa had no great cities, no sophisticated civilizations. The ruins of Benin, looted and broken, were erased from schoolbooks, while its treasures were displayed in foreign museums as curiosities divorced from their origins. The walls of Benin, greater than any European fortifications, were forgotten. Only in the whispers of oral tradition did the true memory of the metropolis endure. Today, archaeology has begun to restore that memory. Excavations reveal the scale of the city, the precision of its earthworks, the artistry of its guilds. Scholars recognize Benin as one of the great capitals of the world, a city that stood shoulder to shoulder with London, Paris, and Lisbon. To walk its streets was to see order, authority, and art woven seamlessly together. To look upon its walls was to understand the genius of African engineering, and to enter its palace was to step into the living soul of a people who believed their king was both ruler and divine guardian. The tragedy of Benin City is that so little of it remains. Unlike Rome or Athens, whose ruins still draw millions, Benin was burned, its walls dismantled, its art scattered across continents. Yet its legacy survives in memory, in artifacts, and in the spirit of its descendants. The Oba's line continues, carrying forward rituals and traditions that root the present in the grandeur of the past. The people of Benin, though scarred by empire, remain heirs to a city that once outshone London. In the end, the story of Benin City is more than history. It is a challenge. It asks us to reconsider the narratives we have inherited about Africa, to recognize the civilizations erased by conquest, and to honor the brilliance that empire tried to bury. For when we speak of Benin, we do not speak of ruins, we speak of resilience, of a metropolis that once dazzled the world, and of a people whose memory burns brighter than the flames that once consumed their city.